Well, hello again. Welcome to the Alan Hudson Podcast, the podcast that gives you proper football and proper talk. Remember, if you enjoy the shows that we do, please remember to click on the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. That'd be great for us. We can get lots more great guests like the great guest we've got on today. It is, of course, as you can see, the one and only Eddie Gray, formerly of Leeds, of course. Welcome, Eddie. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Nice to be here. Yeah.
Alan, do you want to say a few words of introduction to Eddie?
Well, I'm wondering what that smile on his face is all about, to tell you the truth. Because over the years, Eddie, I started watching. I was a Fulham supporter as a kid.
Yeah.
So, but I first see, I think 15, watch you play. You didn't play in the game when Peter Lorimer scored the goal that got disallowed, did you? The semi-final.
Yep.
Or did you?
Yes, I did. Yeah, yeah.
I thought Jimmy Greenough played.
Yeah, Jimmy was a good player.
Yeah.
Jimmy Greenough was a top player. Funny enough, I mean, Jimmy never get capped for England, but I think Jimmy Greenough was good enough to play for England. Jimmy was a top player. Jimmy was a year older than me. When I first went to Leeds, I'll be honest with you, I couldn't believe how good Jimmy Greenough was. He was a terrific footballer. He moved on from our club. I thought he should have stuck around our club a little bit longer. And the thing that surprised me, as I said earlier about Jimmy, I couldn't believe Jimmy never played for England.
Well,
he was that good.
Well, I always thought the obvious. And in later years, when I was playing with him at Stoke, your boss didn't really like Jimmy. He unlike you, I thought Jimmy was unbelievable, fantastic.
Yeah,
I loved my time playing with him.
Yeah,
but it seemed that he didn't like him because, a little bit like yourself, you didn't leave your foot in there. You was one of the few players that didn't leave your foot in there.
Are you talking about our team? Are you talking about football in general?
I'm talking, yeah. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's funny that because people talk about our team, like leaving the foot in. Well, some of the teams we played against, they were quite good at it as well.
Well, the 1970 final was, example, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was a white fire against a blue fire, and although you were the better team in both matches, football wise, I think we were behind 3 times. And although I didn't play, I was heartbroken missing that game.
Yeah.
And as I'm sure Paul Reaney was, he broke his leg. Yeah.
Yeah. Did. I mean, I think the thing about those games is, Chelsea were a terrific team then. We were a top side. I think in both games, as you said, we probably shaded the games. But Chelsea dug in, and they worked extremely hard, and they get the reward in the end. But I think over the period of the game, the 2 games, we should have won the game. But that's
you were the better team in both matches, on football terms. But I think I always had that feeling, although I was literally heartbroken missing both matches and sitting them out, and so I didn't really. I see it with different shade glass, and I just knew we wouldn't lay down.
Well, I think the thing about those days, when you look at the teams we were around, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City, Man United, there's a lot of terrific teams in. I mean, I looked at some of the fixtures we were playing then, and wherever you went, you knew you were in for a tough game. I mean, you even look at sides like Southampton then. They had a lot of good players. That was a tough place to go, so there was a lot of tough games in those days. And that's what made it such an exciting league.
Yeah. I'll come back to that in a minute, but I've got 2 messages for you.
Yeah.
One from Willie Mackay.
Yeah.
Who says you're the best player to come out of Scotland.
Yeah.
I said how about Baxter, and he went, well, they both come from Fife.
No, I'm not from Fife. I'm from Glasgow.
Well, there you go. So what does Willie know?
He knows nothing.
No, he knows nothing. Right. And what the other one is from my friend Don Shanks, who down in London, who loves you as a player, and he said he would like to kick you more. He said,
"Tell me, was it quick enough?"
I know. He said, "Hello, see you when Leeds come down to the bush.
Yeah.
Hopefully Leeds have automatic promotion by then, and then you can let the Rangers win because it's a big QPR."
Yeah, I know that. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Oh well, I hope we've got promotion by then as well.
Yeah, so do I. Plus the fact, I want to ask you a kind of question which I've always wanted to ask a Leeds player. When in 1970, in the two semi-finals, we had an easy passage. We played Watford. Why did it take you 3 games to knock Manchester United out?
They weren't a bad team. They had some decent players.
Well, they had George, but
I was just looking at that, and looking at the Manchester United games. They were tough games. I mean, the quality of the players Manchester United had, and it was always going to be tough. I mean, it's still the same to this day. Like regardless who's top of the league, when you actually think in football terms then, and even now to a certain extent, Manchester United were always a benchmark. If you compete with them, we're doing well. I mean, when you look at the players they had in those days, George, Bobby Charlton, who's the best British player I've ever seen, and Dennis, and Paddy Crane, they had some great players.
Well, for me, it was kind of not ironic, but bittersweet. I was great friends with George.
Yeah. So was I. Spoke at George's memorial.
Well, yeah, but the irony of this, Eddie, is this was my first season in the game.
Yeah.
I get to the cup final in my first season. George never got to an FA Cup final because of you. You knocked him out.
Yeah.
And the great Johnny Haynes never got to an FA Cup final. And there I am in my first season, 18 years of age, and I missed it for injury. So
it's funny you mentioned Johnny Haynes. I mean, I'd love to have seen Johnny Haynes in his prime. Obviously, before I came to Leeds, I knew all about him. I was a young 15-year-old when I came, and I knew about his reputation. And everybody I speak to about Johnny Haynes says he was an unbelievable player.
Yeah, he was. And a gentleman.
Yeah.
He really was. In an age where we've lived through, you didn't get the money, I didn't get the money in the early days. John was the first £100 a week player because of Tommy Trinder,
Yeah.
And he didn't really want to go anywhere else. He could have went to Inter Milan, he could have went to Real Madrid,
Yes.
he could have went.
I mean, when you think about it, actually, when you get back to those days, Johnny Haynes and Jimmy Hill, they started the revolution for footballers to get a little bit more money out of the game.
Yeah, and a little bit George Eastham as well.
Yes, correct. Yeah. I mean,
and
they're players that I knew about growing up as a young lad, and the reputations last forever. And all the players that are playing now should be grateful to players like that for what they've got.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Did you come across Jim Baxter much?
I came across him a few times. I mean, Jim was older than me. I mean, funny enough, when I was younger, I played. I was a left half. The old left half. Yeah, I was never a wing. I'd never played in the wing in my life till I came to Leeds. I was a midfield player, and that's where I played with the Scottish schoolboys, the Glasgow schoolboys, and the Scottish schoolboys. And funny enough, when I was young that age, playing with the Scottish schoolboys, they tagged me as the next Jim Baxter. The style of play. Yeah. Baxter was a great player. Some player.
Well, I loved Eddie McCready was a lovely friend of mine, and he lived out in Tennessee, in Davy Crockett Avenue. And I went to visit him when I had a bad car accident, and I went to visit, and I sat out with him one day. I asked him about Baxter, and he said to him, he said the '67 game at Wembley.
Yes.
He said Eddie was like that, always nervous before games, and he said Jim just sat there at the door bouncing the ball, and he said to him, son, he says, how much you want to win today? So he said, I would give my life. He went, well, Just keep kicking that little ginger fella, and when you get it, give it to me, and we will win.
I think that's the game where he was teasing Alan Ball, Jim Baxter, putting his foot on the ball and telling Alan to come and try and win it, and then rolling it away for him. Baxter was a great player.
Yeah. So Willie Mackay was wrong.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. No, he was. I mean, at that particular time, when you think of the players that come out of Scotland, I mean, one of the greatest players that have ever played the game, he played in that era, Dave Mackay. I mean, Mackay, he was some player.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone thought.
I know Dave. I know Dave very well. My friend wrote his book as well. Martin Knight wrote his book, and he took him all round his schooling and everything.
But the reputation Dave had a reputation of being a hard man, which he was. But Dave was a great footballer. I mean, terrific footballer. Could ping that ball with his right foot, his left foot, 30, 40 yards across the pitch to the wide players. And, I mean, I once says to Jimmy Greaves, says, Jimmy, who was the man at Tottenham in your days? He says, there was only one man, Eddie. That was Mackay. He would let people know.
And he would take the team meetings as well.
Oh, yes. That's what I mean. He let everybody know how the game played, I remember going to the 1956 Scottish Cup final, Celtic against Hearts, and I was a huge Celtic fan, still am. But Mackay was playing for the Hearts, and it was a young Dave Mackay, 1956, and the Hearts beat Celtic 3 that day. And it was about the first time I ever seen Mackay playing before he went to Tottenham, and he was unbelievable that day. And when he signed for Tottenham, I thought, they've signed some player. Absolutely.
Very, very close to Tommy Docherty as well. They were thick as thieves, them two.
Oh, yeah. The Doc was some man, He was a great player at Leeds. Bobby Collins, Bobby was a great player at Leeds. He was the man that started Leeds United on the road to success. And he was playing for Everton one day against Tommy. And the two of them grew up together in the Glasgow area. And Bobby was playing for Everton, Tommy was playing for the Arsenal. And Bobby was running out to the right wing at Highbury. And Highbury, it was quite close to the touchline. And the next thing, Bobby was 3 rows back in the stand. And he looked up, and who was standing there? Tommy Docherty. And Bobby says to him, Tommy, what's that all about? And Tommy just looked at him and says, you've no friends in this game.
Before we go back to Leeds and Chelsea Cup ties, I just want to.
Oh, he seems to have frozen.
Yes, he has.
Hopefully, we'll get him back in a minute.
No problem.
But Eddie, can I just ask you a question? I think either you or Alan mentioned this earlier, and of course, we're talking today because of the upcoming Chelsea Leeds FA Cup fifth round tie at Stamford Bridge. Yeah. And in the last 50 years, there's been a real intense rivalry between the two clubs. Do you think that rivalry stems from that 1967 semi-final when Peter Lorimer had that goal disallowed, and it was quite a controversial game, wasn't it?
It was controversial. I mean, the games against Chelsea and the Arsenal in those days, they were tough games. I mean, it was always, the game was physical then, and probably, you would get away with a little bit more then than you could now with all the VAR and checks, and so it was a tough physical game. So, but there was always that north-south thing then, the teams from the north coming down to London and playing against the Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, the top teams in London, and they made the rivalry. The press did it as well. They liked that. They spoke about it all the time. The north-south divide, and there was always tough games. There were some terrific teams up north, and it's the same with the teams down south. So there was always going to be some battles,
Yeah,
but it was great to play games.
But when the Chelsea Leeds game were cup ties, always seemed to be something.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think the thing about it was, like, although they were physical games, there was a tremendous amount of respect between both sides and the quality of the players that were playing, on the pitch. I mean, both teams are terrific footballers. And like most of the great teams in those days, if some team wanted a physical battle against us, we could match them. If they wanted to play football, we could match them again. And you can say that about a lot of teams in that era. I mean, the game, you probably get away with a lot more then than you would now.
I think you're being a little bit stand backish on. You could compete. I think that was a bit of an understatement. I remember moving on to Stoke when we played and we were 2-0 down in the Victoria Ground and we won 3-2.
I remember that game. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great game.
Did you there? You just threw that one in, didn't you?
Well, I only throw it in because it was a memorable. I go to Stoke a lot, Eddie, and I spend a lot of time there. And everybody brings that game up, and it was.
It was a terrific game. And the thing about that game, it was such an important game as well, and that's why it lasts in the memory.
Yeah. I think the reason we won that game is because you were lacking a little bit in the heart of your defence. You'd lost Big Jack, I believe, and you brought a lad from Huddersfield in, and I think we kind of played on that,
Yes, yeah.
And that's where the winning goal come from. Hurst said it across to Smith. You won't like this, Eddie, but that's how it happened. We've got the third winning goal.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Stoke was a hard place to go. There's some good footballers at Stoke, and it was always a tough place to go.
Yeah. I found it hard when I was with Chelsea and playing there, but I was, as Tony knows, it was the greatest thing ever happened to me going to play for Waddington.
Yes,
he was like Jock Stein.
That's the thing about Tony Wants. He's done a great job there. I mean, terrific.
Yeah.
And he had a good knowledge of the game.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, fantastic. And he could drink a gin and tonic as quick as anyone I ever met. Yeah.
Was that at half time?
Well, he could sneak one in. It was great. It was. But did you did it ever come that you would ever leave Leeds at any time?
Not really. No, never. I mean, I joined the club straight for when I played with the Scottish schoolboys when I was 15, 1963, and I've basically been there ever since. I'm still at the club at the present time, for want of a better word, in an ambassador role. I go to every game, the home and away games. I mean, like everything. I've done everything at Leeds. A youth team player, reserve team player, first team player, youth team coach, reserve team coach, first team coach, manager, coach driver. Yeah. Well, I didn't actually drive the coach, but I could have done.
You've done everything, yeah. But that's why you are. And how is Peter Lorimer? Is he good?
No, Peter died. My mate died.
Did he?
Peter died a year ago. Yeah.
So who are you left with now?
Peter was my roommate for all the years we were at Leeds, 12 years. It's funny. I went to watch the Scottish schoolboys in 1962, the year before I played, and I'd never heard of Lorimer. And it was Scotland against England, and I couldn't believe how good this boy was. And me coming from Glasgow, we're very arrogant. We think all the best players came from Glasgow or Edinburgh. So I looked at the programme after the game and I seen this. Peter Lorimer for Broughty Ferry. I didn't even know what Broughty Ferry was. It was up outside Dundee. And he was some player. I mean, nobody will ever beat Peter's goal-scoring record for Leeds. I mean, nobody will ever do it, especially nowadays. People moving on. I mean, like 250-odd, 60-odd goals, unbelievable. People actually think of Peter, hotshot Lorimer. He was brilliant striker of the ball. Probably the cleanest striker of the ball I've ever seen. And I'm talking about passing the ball across for the right wing, the left wing, crosses, shooting at goal. I mean, we used to get free kicks for 30 yards out, and a team would put the wall up.
The famous one in Villa Park.
Don Revie used to say to Peter before the game, Peter, just run up and hit it as hard as you can at that wall, and they'll all duck.
Yeah. Hey, well, they'll move. But I was sitting right in line with him at Villa Park when he hit that one past Benetti and he disallowed it. Wow.
Disallowed that, I know. That was a bit unfair, that one. I think it was a goal.
Well, you imagine VAR.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. But I had the pleasure of playing against Peter. I was in Seattle. We played for Vancouver.
Him and Johnny Giles went to Vancouver. Johnny went to Vancouver, took Peter over. Peter enjoyed his time out there, you know.
Well, I see him as a better player when he was there than I did at Leeds, because it was, because you seem to have the ball all the time.
I think the thing about it at Leeds is, I mean, there were so many good players. I mean, Peter was never a winger. Peter was basically what you would call in the old-fashioned terms an inside forward. I mean, people think I was a left winger. I'd never played left wing in my life till I came to Leeds, and Don says, Eddie, I'm trying to build a team. Would you ever go at left wing? It'll be easier for you. Because I was a midfield player as well. I played all my career for the Glasgow Schoolboys and the Scottish Schoolboys. And even when I played my first game for Leeds, when I was 17, I was playing the middle of the park, a midfield player. You know, But Don was trying to build a side with the players he had. And he asked me if I'd have a go outside left. He says it'll be easy for you. He asked Peter to play outside right. And then it worked for us, Well,
he wanted you two wide out of the way so he had the two kickers in midfield.
That
was a trip for the man. But going on a step, I must say it was my old mate's birthday yesterday, Peter Osgood.
Yes, yeah.
Bless him, he's been gone now about 10 years, and
he was some player.
Unbelievable. I was a Fulham supporter when Alan Clark played there.
Yes.
And then he went on and obviously done well for you. But how do you compare them two?
Osgood
with Osgood?
I think they were different types of players. I mean, I think Peter Osgood was probably one of the best players I've seen. But Clark was one of the best finishers I've ever seen. Alan was a good finisher. Alan, if Alan was running through and go 1v1, you could walk back to the halfway line and wait for the kickoff, ended up in the back of the net. Yeah. Peter was probably more silky, in his movement, and he was a great player. But Alan Clark was right up there with the top players I've ever played. He was a great.
Well, he was down the pecking order when it comes to Osgood. But Osgood, let me tell you something, Eddie. When Osgood went in 1970, when we won, I was supposed to go to Mexico and got injured. But if Alf Ramsey picked Osgood in Mexico, we might have been close to winning that again, because Brazil beat us 1-0. He put Jeff Astle on instead of Peter Osgood, which was, my God, chalk and cheese,
Yeah. I think he's one of the top players that I've seen, Peter Osgood. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not very complimentary about Chelsea players, are you?
Well, it's some smashing players, Chelsea. I mean, some of the games we played against Chelsea, some of them were X-rated, physically.
Well, we know one of them, yeah.
Yeah. There was a few of them, though. There was a few games. But, I mean, they were always great clashes, like Leeds and Chelsea. And that's why I'm looking forward to the game so much next week, because, it'd be great to see Leeds playing against Chelsea again, lining up and, and just thinking back to some of the battles we had over the years.
Well, they won't be quite like that, but I must say something to you, because people got it all wrong in 70. You give David Webb the run around.
Yeah.
So then we had to change tactics, didn't we? That couldn't happen at Old Trafford, and we moved your friend Ron Harris over.
Yeah. And do you know the first thing Ron did in that game? He gave me a right whack in my knee.
I do. I remember it. And that's what he was told to do.
I can still remember it to this day. It still hurts.
Yeah, yeah. And someone sent me a message the other day when he heard that you were coming on, and he said, ask Eddie for Ronnie's studs back.
I know. Do you know? I was at a do one day in London, and I got a tap on the shoulder, and I turned around, and it was Ron. And Ron says to me, "Can I have my studs back?" I just burst out laughing.
Yeah. But the funny thing about it is when you did that at Wembley to Webby, and because Webby wasn't a very good right back, he was a good centre half.
Yeah, he was.
That was it. And then two years later, we go back to Wembley to play Stoke City, and in the League Cup, and Dave Sexton made the almighty clanger, dropped another clanger, putting him right back again, and Terry Conroy ripped him apart. So Wembley wasn't very good.
Well, but the funny thing about that cup final, Chelsea, David got the winner.
Well,
he had the last laugh.
He didn't know much about it, but he got it.
No, I know. It did happen in the head.
Yeah, well, David Webb was a glory hunter, Eddie.
Yeah.
He was a glory hunter. He was better in their box than he was ours.
Yeah.
Tell us.
So what do you think?
Can I just ask, Al? What are your memories of that first game, Eddie? Because you were clearly the man of the match in that first game at Wembley. I mean, you as Alan says, you tore David Webb apart down that left wing. But was that one of the greatest games you played?
I don't know. I mean, I think I've played games to equal that. But I think the thing about that game, from my point of view, I've got a lovely trophy. They used to do a lovely trophy, the Man in the Match trophy. And it's silver. I've got it here. But I'd have gladly changed that for a cup-winning medal that year. That was what the game was all about. Eventually, we did win the FA Cup. A couple of years later, we beat Arsenal in the Centenary Cup final. Because, that's what you're in football for, to win things. Big competition. You win the league. We win the FA Cup. We win the League Cup. We win in Europe.
Eddie, be honest. Be perfectly honest. Beating Arsenal, you would have swapped that for beating Chelsea, surely. You hated Chelsea. You lot hated us.
Hey, listen, to win any trophy in those days was tough. So we would have took winning cup winners' medals, league championships, beating any team. When you look at the teams that were around there, we've mentioned the Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, and you look at the two clubs in those days from Liverpool and Everton. Everton was a tough place to go. Then you had the Manchester clubs. There was a lot of top teams around there and a lot of top players.
Well, Everton were great with Alan Ball, wasn't they?
Oh, yeah, they were a good side. That was a really hard place to go, Goodison, in those days when they were playing together. Harvey Kendall and Ball.
Absolutely, yeah. But Ball was the boss.
Yeah. A good player, top player.
I will ask you later on. I'm going to get your phone number because I want to come up to Leeds to do a show with you. But you got to put your director's hat away,
Yes. I'm not a director. I'm just an ambassador.
Well, that's even more so, isn't it?
Yeah, but you can sit in the director's box with me if you want.
Lovely. That would be great.
Yeah.
I was the last time I was at Leeds as a player, I was with Stoke and I had a broken leg, and Joe Jordan broke one of our players' legs.
Joe. Hello. He's frozen again.
Looks like we've lost him again.
Yeah.
It's a good job we didn't freeze like this on the football pitch.
No, I know he was a top player. I mean, funny enough, when I look back in, the Chelsea team at that particular time, the Tottenham teams, the Arsenal teams, and the teams up north. I mean, most sides had tremendous players playing for them. I mean, really brilliant players. Their names have stood the test of time. People still remember them. So that's the great thing about playing in those days. There was a lot of great teams around.
Yeah. What I mean, Alan asked this earlier, but was it you neatly swerved it like you did on the football pitch all those years ago? But was there a hatred from Leeds towards Chelsea? I know from what Alan.
I would say that when we went to London, we all was expected, let's say, the fiercest game against Chelsea. There was great respect between both clubs, But I would think that when we played Chelsea, there was a little bit extra needle. Just let's say that.
You lost me for a couple of minutes there because I'm in Egypt, Eddie. And it keeps cutting out, but continue.
Yeah.
Well, Eddie. Yeah, I finally got Eddie to admit there was a bit of extra needle when Chelsea played Leeds.
Well, there was. I mean, it went without saying. It was even the fans, everything about it was. I think those are the most talked about games.
They were always close games. By one game, I think I can remember, Alan. I think the score was 7. Do you remember that game?
I was there. I was there.
Do you remember that game?
I was a young.
I thought I just threw that one in.
I'm pleased you did. You can have all them 7-0s, mate, in the league, but we'll have cup finals.
Yeah.
You can have as many goals as you want. I feel sorry for my old mate, my Seattle boss, Jimmy Gabriel.
Yeah, Jimmy. Yeah.
I feel sorry for him when you did that to Southampton
your
place.
Ellen Road, yes. I mean, I think they caught us in a rich vein of form, because around just about a week or two in between the two games, we'd also beat Manchester United 5 at Ellen Road. Yeah. And then Southampton happened to come and because it was, we kept the ball for long periods, people always remember that game. But I don't think Jimmy liked that game, Jimmy Gabriel. No.
Did you play with Jimmy in the Scotland team?
No, I never played with him for Scotland.
No.
But Jimmy was a top player.
Yeah.
Top player.
He was tough.
Yeah, he was tough. He was hard. There was a lot of hard Scottish players around then.
Yeah, you've been.
We'd one of them as well. I think his name was Bremner.
Well, was he really that tough, or was he? I think he was such a great competitor, wasn't he?
Yeah, but Billy was a great competitor, but Billy was a great player. I mean, his midfield partnership with Johnny Giles, Giles is the best player I played with. He was an unbelievable player. But that partnership they had, it was tremendous, and a completely different types of character,
Yeah.
Johnny on the pitch, Johnny was a governor. Billy was captain of the team. Johnny was the governor.
Well, we know he was from like the Don Corleone school of football, wasn't he?
Yeah. But he was. John had a great footballing brain. I still talk to John regularly. A great footballing brain, but he could dictate, Alan. 5 minutes into a game, he could dictate and know where teams could hurt us and where we could hurt teams. He had a great knowledge of the game, John. He still has.
Good brain, yeah.
Yeah, a good footballing brain. I mean, you probably get back to the days, like you mentioned him earlier, Johnny Haynes playing at Fulham. He looked as if he had a great footballing brain and his knowledge of how to play the game.
He had to playing for Fulham with that lot, yeah. But I remember one situation. Johnny Giles was playing for Manchester United.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in the East Stand, and Johnny Giles got the ball. He took it up to Eddie, dropped his shoulder to go down the line, and he cut inside, and Eddie swiped him across the waist.
Yes.
They carried him off, and that was where it all started with Giles and Eddie.
Yeah, but the thing about that is, when I asked Johnny, because in footballing terms, and you know what I mean, John could look after himself. But I think it all happened after that game against Eddie McCready. I think he thought, that's not going to happen to me again. I'm going to look after myself.
Plus the fact he didn't play out right then, did he? You know, he'd moved inside and he
moved into the middle of the park. I mean, that was always his natural position. It was just when he get to the side as a young player at Manchester United. I mean, John played in the FA Cup final winning team for Manchester United in '63. Yeah. But he was playing outside right then because he had Paddy Crerand and Bobby Charlton, middle of the park, and Johnny was a young player. But when John came to Leeds, I mean, I think Don Revie seen John somebody that could take over for Bobby Collins. I mean, Bobby Collins was a great player. I mean, and Bobby Collins is still, I think, to this day, the most important player that's ever walked through the gates of Ellen Road. Because he taught, Bobby was a great Celtic player, a great Everton player. He came to Leeds United when he was 34, 35. Everybody thought he was finished. And he taught everybody how to play. You know, he did.
Yeah.
Bobby was the main player. And that says to John Giles later on in life, you know, he just won the FA Cup with Manchester United, 1963. Why did you come to Leeds United? He says, I came to Leeds United because I knew Bobby Collins was there. That was it. That was the esteem that everybody held Bobby Collins in at Leeds United. You know, I mean, it was amazing. I got to play with Bobby, not a lot because Bobby was a lot older, but I used to watch Bobby playing in the great Glasgow Celtic teams, and Bobby was a great player. And as I said, most important player, I think that it's ever put the white shirt of Leeds United on.
Yeah, that's some compliment.
Yeah.
Who was your hero, Eddie, as a boy?
Well, I was a big Celtic fan, and there used to be a player played with Celtic called Willie Fernie. Willie was Willie was the type of player. He'd pick the ball up, he'd get by 3 and 4 people, and then he would lose it. But I used to love. No, Willie Fernie was a great Celtic player. He played in a very famous game when Celtic beat Rangers 7-1 in the cup final at Hampden. And Willie Fernie played that day. And Willie played with Bobby Collins and Willie grew up together at Celtic Park. And Willie was always my hero. You know, like, because he used to drift by people as if they were standing still, you know. So it was great to watch.
Which like yourself, did you ever count how many people you beat in one?
No, I never. No, I never.
Yeah,
no. I never thought about that. It's funny, you know, when they used to pick the ball up, and I scored a goal against Burnley once, and I picked the ball up in the left touchline near the corner flag, and I think I went by about 5 or 6 people and scored. And people always talk about that goal, and they tell me how many people I beat. You know, I could never think myself. I never picked the ball up.
Was that not on telly? I think it was on telly the other day.
Yeah, I'll be on the telly. Yeah, but the funny thing is, I scored both goals in that game. But the first goal I scored, it gave me more satisfaction because the ball came out to me about 35 yards from goal, and I had one touch, and I seen the goalkeeper off his line, and I chipped it over him for 35 yards. Now that gave me more satisfaction from a footballing point of view than the second goal, because the second goal I picked the ball up, as I said, in the left wing, and I'm getting by people. You know, you're not intending to score a goal then. You know, you know, it just happened. It evolved.
Yeah.
The first goal, it was a quick control, a quick look up, and a chip out of the goalkeeper. That meant more to me. You know.
Talking about you can do anything with a football, you can make it talk with that left foot of yours. But I must tell you a quick story. There was a story going that Jim Baxter and Dave Mackay in the same Scottish squad.
Yeah.
And Jim was standing on the edge of the box, chipping balls onto the bar and getting it back, chipping it on and chipping it back.
Yeah.
And Mackay walked across and they said, "Come on then," you know. And Jim went 10 out of 10. Dave went bang, bang, 10 out of 10. And then Dave turned around to him and said, "Now do it with your right foot."
Yeah. Well, that's the type of thing Mackay would do.
And he did it. And he could do it.
You know, funny enough, I get asked to, pick my top British players that I've seen. you know, over the years. And Mackay was in it. Mackay was in the top 10.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Terrific.
Without a doubt. Great man, as I say. He was a Haydock races one day with Tommy Dockey, and I went up to the box to have a drink with him, and I said to him, Dave, I said, when you were playing for Derby, I said, I went onto the track I was my first season again, 18 years of age. I went to pick up the ball, and he shoved me out of the way. He said, go away. He said, you shouldn't even be on the same pitch as me. So I went, what was all that about? And he said, Alan, don't worry about it. I said it to everybody.
And he probably,
how great he was.
He probably meant it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, he was, you know.
Can I just go back to this 1970 Cup final for a second? I mean, we've got to talk about the state of the pitch at Wembley for that first game.
Yeah.
I mean, that was horrendous, wasn't it, Eddie?
Yeah, well, they had the Horse of the Year show on the Thursday night, and they ploughed the pitch up, and you know, they couldn't do anything with it. The pitch was awful. I mean, it was so disappointing, I think, for both sets of players to think you're playing in the cup final and you're playing at Wembley and you got in the pitch and you see the state of the pitch, you know, because
it's no longer the hallowed turf, was it?
No, it was, you know, you get visit you know, a billiard table, you know, a snooker table.
Yeah,
you go
that was Harvey Smith and all these, Mark.
Yeah. Good jumpers, yeah.
I was quite pleased that it was like that, because I was sitting on the touchline and, you know.
You'd have been laughing.
That would have suited me anyway. I was young and I could have ploughed through that. Yeah, it's not very fair. Tony's not very fair on me, picking games that I'm, you know, the heartbreaking games that I miss, you know.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I went to Arsenal from Stoke, and we done a show one night, and we was talking, and I got up and someone said to me, why was it that Chelsea hated Leeds so much? And I said, it's very, very strange you answer that question, because everybody in Stoke hated them when I played for Stoke, and everybody in North London hated them when I played for Arsenal. So you were the most hated team on earth, wasn't you?
Well, I think what happened with Leeds, I mean, and it was the press. I think it started it in London. You know, the dirty Leeds thing. You know that.
Yeah.
And I think the thing about it is, I think why we got that reputation, because if it was a physical game, you know, the players that I played with were more than a match for any team. But if they wanted to play a football game, pure football, we were more than a match then. And I think that's. But
I truly believe you must admit that you thrived on being hated, didn't you?
Well,
or having that reputation.
I think that when, you know, in any walk of life, you know, if you're the tops at something, people are always trying to bring you down a bit.
Yeah.
And that inspired our players a bit. I mean, when we used to go down to London, we'd be laughing, you know, among the boys, say, "Oh, you know the reception we're going to get down here," and our players thrived in that. He says, "I want to be great." You know?
Well, that's exactly what I just said. Yeah, you thrived on it. You loved it.
Yeah.
You know, he's just had a go at me, Eddie, for including a game that he didn't play in. But I'm gonna bring him in terms of a lesson he learned, Alan. This is from playing against Leeds early in his career, and he always brings this story up about playing against Paul Madeley. I'll hand the floor over to Alan so he can explain what I mean.
Well, we played. I think I didn't play, but we played at your place in a League Cup time. We drew, and you come down to the bridge, and I played against Paul Madeley, and I couldn't keep up with him. He was a monster, wasn't he? You know, he long loping, you know, and
probably
just keep up.
We rated him so highly, but in general terms, people didn't realise how good he was. He was some player, Paul Medley. He was quick. Yeah. He was strong. He could play. There was a period of time, I don't know if you'll remember this, Alan, but he actually played centre forward for us.
Yeah, yeah.
And played as a centre forward.
Yeah.
And he led the line. He was a. Some people think that his best position was right back, but he could play right back, centre back, left back, any of the midfield positions. And he, as I said, he even played centre forward. He was one of the great players, Paul Medley. And he was so quick and strong.
Oh, it looks like we've lost him again. The line from Egypt is obviously not great today.
No.
But Alan always says, I mean, as he just described, he struggled. It was early in his career. I think he must have been 18 or 19.
Yeah.
And it completely changed his way of playing.
Yes.
Having been dominated by Paul Madeley in that game, he realised he had to get his fitness up, and he had to make sure that he was a 90-minute player from then on.
Well, that's it. I think when you play against players like Paul Madeley, you realise that he could play anywhere. Paul, as I say, right back, midfield, but even play up front. And I remember, of course, and he was very quick. I remember a little story years ago. Peter Lorimer was my mate, and Peter loved a bet. Peter liked to bet. So we're just training one day, and Paul Madeley was very quick. So Peter just walked by Don Revy one day and says to Don, boss, how many yards do you think Paul Madeley could give Eddie over 50? And Don says to Peter, 2 yards easy. And Peter says to him, right, we'll have a bet on it. So they had a bet. And me, when we used to go away, we used to play carpet balls and things like this, And Peter and I used to run the book. We were the bookmakers. So Peter ran a book on this, Paul Madeley against me. And all the boys backed Paul Madeley. And Peter and Don were at the winning post. He was giving me 2 yards over 50. Peter didn't realise I was quick. I might not have looked quick, but I was quick. So I won the race easy. And Peter stunning with Don at the winning post. And as I ran by the winning post, Peter turned around to the boss, Don Revy, and says, disappoint me, you. He says, why? He says, I thought you knew something about the game. Don was raging, and Peter cleaned up. Peter took the money.
Oh, Alan, I was just explaining to Eddie how that meeting that you had with Paul Madeley early in your career, it had a profound effect on you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it does it with all of us. Going back to Eddie's playing in the youth team, being a youth, being a 16, 17, 18-year-old, some of us developed later than others. I was late developing, and I knew that my father had told my best friend, if Alan keeps going out at nights doing what he's doing, he ain't gonna cut it here because he's getting run off his feet, And rather than stay in more, I trained harder.
Yeah.
And that worked. I used to do the long runs, box to box running, and all that, and that put me in good shape, and it never happened to me again. But he gave me a lesson that night, Paul Madeley. And what happened? Dave Sexton, he put me out on the right wing and brought Johnny Boyle in, and John could keep up with him. And I had the pleasure that night of nutmegging Terry Cooper, so that was worth it. And we won 2-0, but I think we always edge you out in cups.
Yeah.
Didn't we?
Yeah, well, yeah, probably. But the thing about the game, Alan, and it's never changed really. And Don Revy brought us up to think like this. Doesn't make any difference how much talent you've got and how much ability. If you can't run, you can't play. You've got to be able to get about the pitch, Especially,
well, this is why
especially when you're playing against players like Paul Madeley, who could run all day and was supremely fit and a great athlete. you know. And
Yeah.
you realise that when you play against top players, the one thing they can all do, they can all run. Whether it be quick or slow, they can all keep up for that 90 minutes, 95 minutes, whatever it is.
Yeah. I was going to say something else. I was chuckling to myself the other day. It was about when I knew you was going to come on air, and everybody was getting back to me, Eddie Gray. Oh well, Eddie Gray. But and I said, and the amazing thing was, if you'd have come played on one wing and we had you on one wing and Charlie Cook on the other, I think they might have, took to you a little bit more,
I think they'd have liked that.
You'd have been a great.
Charlie was a great player. Charlie was a great entertainer. But Charlie was a terrific player. Charlie was great. Yeah. I used to love watching Charlie play. He had wonderful feet.
Well, he was when he first come to Chelsea in the early days. He was as good as they get.
Yeah,
and we did a podcast with him the other week, and when he first come to Chelsea, I've never seen nothing like. He was like up there with George Best,
Yeah.
As regards taking people on and putting them on their arse, and then all of a sudden he met Tommy Baldwin.
Yeah.
And then they were down the King's Road far too often, and his game card started to waver a bit,
Yeah. Hey, I tell you what, that's another player you mentioned there, Tommy Baldwin. Tommy was a good player.
Yeah. His great friend, they're burying him this week.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. They're burying him Friday. I was supposed to go last week, but they cancelled the funeral, and he was just loved by everybody.
Yeah.
Loved by everybody.
Yeah.
He was probably the, Osgood, they was a king. Charlie was a prince. I was a nuisance. And Tommy was the fans' favourite, I think.
Yeah.
Great fella.
Some terrific players on that side. You just mentioned a few there.
Yeah.
And
it's nice of you. It's nice of you to say that, because every player you've mentioned of Leeds is great. Did you not have any great players come along?
Where at Leeds?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a few.
Well, he said to in the film Damn United.
Yeah.
When your boss is sitting next to your other boss, Brian Clough, and he says to him about, you didn't treat the players right, which maybe he did, maybe he didn't.
Yeah.
Clough went there for a certain reason, I believe, and that was to crucify everything. And he said to him, you didn't treat our world-class players like you should have. Now, he wasn't talking about yourself and everything. He was talking about Terry Yorath and a couple of others.
Yes.
Who were on the sidelines. And Clough said, are you trying to say that they're world-class players? So he kind of had that attitude that, everybody that put a white shirt on was a world-class player,
Yeah. Well, that's, when you think about it, when Don first came to Leeds, when he first came to Leeds, well, he came as a player, and then it became player manager, then manager. I mean, Leeds United had never won anything in their history,
Yeah.
They had a great history in the game, and Don built that up. I mean, Don was very successful himself. He played with a terrific Manchester City team, and he introduced what they called the Rive plan at Manchester City. He'd watched the great Hungarian team in 1963 playing England when they beat them at Wembley, and they beat them 6 at Wembley, but they beat them 7 in Budapest, in the return match. And Hidde Guti, the great Hidde Guti, was playing for with number 9 in his back, but he never played like a centre forward. He played that deep lying role. And even as a player, Don had the reputation. I found this out later on in life with some of his ex-Man City players. He had a reputation about really thinking about the game. So he introduced the Hidde Guti plan to Manchester City.
All right.
And he took that plan on, and they called it the Rive plan. So years ago, how the game was, number 2 would mark number 11, number 5 would mark number 9. So when Don, wearing number 9, sat very deep and played like a deep line midfield player and joining in, the centre back didn't know what to do, and they called it the Reeve plan at Man City. So Don,
well, he also brought the Reeve plan into England, and I weren't in it.
Yeah. Well, he knew the game.
And that was Peter Osgood.
He's breaking up a bit.
Yeah, he's just frozen up again.
Yeah.
Okay, look, I think we've probably taken up as much of your time, Eddie, as we can. Thanks for joining us. We've got.
Much.
Can we just finish off with a prediction for the Chelsea Leeds game next week?
I think we'll give a good account of ourselves. I mean, obviously we're going to a Premier League club now, but the team are playing well. We've got some good players on the side. Being realistic, you'd have to fancy, the Premiership club, but we'll give a good account of ourselves, I think, because there's some good players in the Leeds United lineup just now.
Alan?
Well, all I've got to say, Eddie, it's been a fantastic pleasure.
Thank you very much, and nice to see you, nice to talk to you.
Yeah, great. I mean, there's not many. I think you're probably the only Leeds player I'd have won on here.
Okay.
And that's the truth. Thank you very much, Ed.
Thank you very much. Oh, thank you. Thanks very much.
Tony has my number. Keep in touch.
Right. Thank you.
Lots of love, mate.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers, Tony.
Okay.
We keep freezing out here.
Yeah.